Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the K&R and Scenic Valley Railroad build. If you're watching the previous installment, you will have seen me finish the bench work on the upper level and get all the track plotted for the main yard area. This week I'm going to plot the track in the branch line yard, get the roadbed installed, and then get on to track laying in the main yard area. So without further ado, let's just head out into the workshop and get to work.
Well, here is the track print for the other half of the upper deck laid out. Well, I say the other half of the upper deck, it's the other major switching area on the upper deck. Obviously I don't need it for that run along the far side because that's really simple. And I didn't bother with that town that's wrapped around the end either, because I can fairly easily plot that. But this area, as you can see, is quite complicated, so that's why I paid for the track print, because it's well worth it. I did make one mistake when I sent off the raw 3PI file to the printer. The circles marking the approximate switch machine locations were printed on top of the track. I made a mistake of putting them on a higher sheet, but it really doesn't matter. The next thing to do is to repeat the process from the other side. Just start systematically shredding the plan one track at a time, starting from the front and working my way back. But actually, come to think of it, before I do that, I have to be very careful to work out which tracks are on roadbed and which are not. I believe it's just the two main tracks that go through the middle. If you recall from an earlier video, I put an 1/8 inch step here where the foam comes from one benchwork to the other. That is so that I can go from the thick roadbed on the return back curve to the thin roadbed in the town, making it a lot easier to get down to grade level for the spurs. Anyway, I'm just going to turn the camera off and get to work. Don't go away. Well, here is the track plan for this town, drawn out full size. I've gone all the way around the end curve. I haven't bothered to put it along the straight here. I'll just put a straight edge in there and join up the curve with the one at this end. Now I've got to go inside and just make sure I get the track plan for this area correct. As I mentioned once before, it's not difficult and there's quite a lot of leeway here. But I do have the first turnout plotted accurately. Well, I have now installed most of the foam roadbed on the branch line. There's a few pieces missing there for the ramps down to grade. Here's where I go from the thick to the thin. And this is where it ends. Unfortunately, I didn't have quite enough roadbed to finish. So after lunch I'm going to come out, cut some more, and then I will continue. Don't go away. Well, I've now installed the rest of the foam roadbed on the upper deck. I've cut a little bit extra just in case I find somewhere else where it's missing. I also swept up the aisles where I'm walking. See? Nice clean walkways. I'm not going to show you the workbench area because I haven't cleaned that. Anyway, tomorrow I don't suppose I shall get much of anything done because I have a whole lot of errands to do in two different towns in opposite directions from home. So I'm going to be driving around most of the day, so I might not even get out here at all. If not, I will see you Monday. Well, it's Monday morning, July 11th I think, and the task for today is to start track laying in this area. First thing that goes in is a big mass of turnouts in the complex yard throat. I have most of my turnouts laid out on the bench. This is just the code 70 turnouts, and it is not all of them by any means. I have another big pile of number 7 still in the box, and I won't need those for a few more days. And as I said, this is only the code 70 turnouts. The code 83s are still inside. I'm always very careful not to mix them up because it's too easy to use the wrong one by mistake. Anyway, right off the bat, the first turnout I need is a code 83. So I'm going to go inside, see what that is, and go get one. So don't go away, I will be right back. Well, I have the first few turnouts positioned. These two here with no ties are just skeletons, they're just placeholders for now. My cheat sheet tells me that this turnout in here should be a number 8 60/40, which is what I have at the front. But I discovered that a number 10 60/46 fits better, so that's what I'm going to use. I have one gluing up in the house with the tie strip, which I will substitute for this one when I'm ready to actually install it. This crossover is just Walther's curved turnouts that the client gave me left over from his previous railroad, and those are straightforward. This crossover that we're looking at now has all the complexities we're ever going to find, because I have to adjust the exit curves at this point, trim them to overlap them, and then this number 8 straight turnout has to get cut in half at this point with extra copper ties added. And midway over this crossover, where we go from code 83 to code 70, also goes from one power district to another. So I need lots of joints at this point. So let me quietly get on with that, work out what I need, and I'll be right back. Well, I now have the first few turnouts ready to install. I've prepped 6, although these 2 at this end I'm not going to glue in place just yet, just in case I need to tweak them a little bit more. But these 4 I'm all ready to glue in place. You can see here where I've cut this one in half and put copper ties in to hold the rail end correctly, and then once I install the layout in the client's attic, the ties go back underneath. This joint still has to be soldered after installation. And if you recall, this crossover has all the complexities one could ever want in a crossover. Not only do both turnouts need to be tweaked a bit, but I go from code 83 to code 70. I go from one power district to another, so I need an insulated rail joint. And of course, I already mentioned cutting this turnout in half to cross a benchwork joint. Anyway, I'm going to get all these first 4 turnouts glued in place, and then I'll be in good stead to continue working outwards from there. So don't go away, I'll check in with you again later. Well, I have now installed about a dozen turnouts. I'm out of weights at the moment. I'm going to go in and get some lunch, and by the time I come back out I should be able to recycle those weights and continue. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, I'm not quite sure how long I've been out here this afternoon. Not very long, it's not time to go in yet. I broke my watch a few days ago and I haven't replaced it yet. But I've laid a few more turnouts and filled in a few of the short bits of track between them. And of course, as you can see, returning by popular demand are the Mountain Dew track weights. Well, I didn't make any more recordings yesterday. When I looked at the clock, I realised it was a lot later than I thought it was, so I didn't come back out again. Anyway, this morning I have done a little bit of cleaning up, put all the weights aside. I've also done my errands, so it's later, it's almost lunchtime actually. I bought a work platform because that's a lot easier than the step ladder. Although this is a good viewing and operating height, it's too high for working on it conveniently, where I have to be able to lean over and look at the track closely from above. So this 20-inch, so that 20-inch high platform is perfect. And of course the height issue is exacerbated by the imperfect floor of my workshop requiring spacer blocks under most of the railroad. And also this morning I took the opportunity to buy some more straight edges because mine just seem to disappear all the time, and another box of track weights down here. The first thing I'm going to do this morning is to go around and solder all the joints that I didn't do yesterday. Places like here, for example, where I have combined two turnouts close together. There's a lot of places like that. What I do is I remove the one rail leading out from the frog completely, and I cut the other one over the middle of the last copper tie, and then just butt the others into it and solder everything. It means a lot fewer joints than doing it the other way. So anyway, I'm going to get all those joints soldered. There's quite a lot of them because this area, the turnouts are very close together. And then I'm going to continue where I left off yesterday. I've got one more turnout to put in there. This one hasn't been installed yet because I've still got to trim the end. And I've got two more there. And then I can do all the yard tracks and most of that end. And then I'll go around the other side of the benchwork and work on the turnouts towards the rear, where it'll be a lot easier to reach there from the front. So I will check in with you again later on. Don't go away. Well, I have installed those 4 turnouts that I talked about earlier. And I've also cut a whole load of track pieces all the way to the benchwork joint at that end, and that gave me enough short offcuts to get these 6 spurs as far as the joint at this end. That is 12 yards of Pico flex track with no wastage. I've got a couple of 3-inch length pieces left over. None of that flex track is glued in place yet. The main reason for that is I want to glue it down when I'm in a position to put the entire length of each track in. That way I can run a straight edge along it and be sure that I'm not going to get a kink at the joint. So I'm just going to continue where I left off, gradually picking away at this, and I'll check in with you again at least one more time before I go in today. Don't go away. I think that's a good place to stop today. I've installed all the turnouts except for this mainline crossover and the series of crossovers at the other end to get back out onto the main again. I've also got the majority of the plain track done throughout the yard. Tomorrow I can probably do this end and also finish these spurs along the back and at this end. I want to get all the code 70 done, and then I'll put away this code 70 track before I do any code 83 because it's too easy to get them mixed up. So I will sign off now and I'll see you tomorrow. Don't go away. Well, this morning I have finished the arrival departure tracks, the thoroughfare track, those spurs over there, all these crossovers to get back out onto the main line, including the Walther's double slip. That is one that the client gave me a long while ago, asked me if I could include it into the design. So there it is. If he didn't have that, I wouldn't actually put a double slip there. I would use a series of crossovers because there's plenty of room for it. But anyway, it is installed now. I think that's a pretty decent morning's work. I am just going to go in now, get some lunch, and then this afternoon I will see if I can get the other end of the yard finished. So don't go away, I'll check in with you again later. Well, if we take a walk around in front of the yard area, we can see that all the track has been laid, except for the 2 main lines that bypass it. I was just about thinking that I need to put the code 70 away and get out the code 83 track for the main lines when I realise that I haven't laid the yard lead. That is also code 70. So I'm just going to do that quickly and then I'll be right back. The only code 70 track in this area that hasn't been laid yet is the yard lead, which wraps all the way around inside the helix, and that will need microengineering track so that it will hold its shape at the joints. But I don't have any of that at the moment. It is still en route to me from the manufacturer. So I'll just leave that out for now and I will come back to it later. The next thing I'm going to do is to install this curved crossover on the main line with these two Walthers curved turnouts, and then I will work my way outwards in both directions from there. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, I installed this curved crossover as I said I was going to, and then I started working my way down the double track main line. I got as far as the benchwork joint, and then I decided that I wanted to put some microengineering in this corner because the curve is quite long. It's too far to go between expansion gaps, and as I've already mentioned on previous videos, the microengineering holds its shape better on the curves where I can't solder the joints than do other brands. So rather than wait for the stuff that's on order to arrive, I dug into my own stash, which means I am now able to work on this end as well. So that's what I did. I've put the yard lead in, the code 70, and the inner main line using the code 83. I've still got one more through track to go, but I'm going to save the last few feet of microengineering track so that I can use it down the other end like I've already mentioned. So anyway, I'm going to go in now and I'll check in with you again some other time. Well, this morning I have installed the two main lines around the front of the yard, around this curve, across the end of the room, all the way to this benchwork joint. I've also put in just over 6 feet of branch line from that same joint back to the power district boundary, and I've installed the last mainline crossover at the front here. I'm going to go out for lunch now, and then when I come back out I will move over to this area and start work on the branch line yard. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later.
Well, that is all for this instalment. I hope you enjoyed the show. In the next instalment I will continue with the track laying and also start on the big job of getting all the wiring in. And I hope to see you back here for that. So in the meantime, Thanks for watching, and bye for now.